Afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today for our fifth Employer Lunch and Learn session, where we share examples and resources aimed at helping our region's employers of all types address the workforce issues that everyone seems to be facing nowadays. My name is Kevin Kettleson. I'm Community Development Specialist with the Upper Minnesota Valley Regional Development Commission in Appleton. We are a 5-county agency that provides a variety of services, including planning, grant writing, community and economic development, regional marketing, and we serve 5 counties in western Minnesota, including Big Stone, Chippewa, Lac-qui-Parle, Swift, and Yellow Medicine, as well as all the cities, townships, schools, and the Upper Sioux community. Like I said, this is our 5th one of these. If you're new to these, first time joining us, we have recordings of our previous sessions on our website. And when I'm done talking, I'll put the link in the chat and you can go check them out. Like I said, we try to address a variety of topics. So maybe there's some there that could be of interest to you. And today we are circling back to the topic that we had in our first session, which is connecting youth to career opportunities in the region. We have 2 different presentations today. We have some folks from the KMS school and the FFA board, Alumni Board. They're going to talk about the KMS Ag Internship Program that is relatively new. And then we'll also have Ariane Ferris with the CTE project coordinator and Paul Lowry, counselor at the Lac-qui-Parle Valley High School, talk about a recently funded LYFT project that focuses on CDL training with the Lac-qui-Parle Valley School and Dawson-Boyd schools. And I forgot to mention, we also have Connor Wiltz, a high school student who was in the internship program this summer, and he'll talk a little bit about, or I'll ask him a few questions about his experience. So I think that's great to have his perspective on everything. The folks at KMS do have to hop off because they're in a classroom, as you may tell there, and I think class is going to start at about 20 after. So we'll allow a little bit of time for questions for them right after they're done. And then they can hop off when they need to. So with that, I think I'll turn things over to Katie and Jared, and they can fill us in a little bit about the KMS Ag Internship Program.
Awesome. Thanks, Kevin. As he said, we are with the KMS FFA and Ag Boosters. And so just a little bit of background, I guess, about our organization before we dive into our internship program. We're an organization made up of about 100 people and organizations. So of those 100, some are farms, some are local businesses. We have banks, co-ops, lots of different members, but really the goal of the program is to support our local KMS FFA chapter and just the ag program here at our high school. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jared to kind of dive into the overall process and really more about our internship program.
Yeah, so how it kind of started was more accidental. On my operation, our farm, we employ a couple high school students every year. And the one student that was working for me 2 summers ago didn't really have an idea what he was going to do after high school. And we'd had different conversations about that. And an idea came to me that maybe we could line them up with some local businesses to give them a view of what our community has to offer for him, in hopes that he would return back to our community and in a job that set him up real well. So I started thinking about how we could do that. And I found a few businesses that we work with on our operation and kind of leveraged that, and asked if a few different businesses would take him as an intern for a month window over June, July, and August, and give them some opportunity to kind of see what their business does and has to offer. After that summer, talking with that student, he really enjoyed that, gave him some ideas of what he wanted to do with his life. And in turn, I came to our alumni board and thought that we could maybe offer this to the students at KMS through the KMS FFA alumni. And so, yeah, it started off as a small idea, and it's pretty simple how we've set it up, and that's the way we're trying to keep it. But we're hoping it takes off from there.
The one thing that I really like about the program too is you know, growing up, my mom is a teacher and my dad is a farmer. So those were kind of not the only careers that I knew about, but sort of. And so the goal of this program is to really help give students an opportunity to learn about, there's more than just 2 different options or 3 different options out there. There's a lot of different things they could go into.
Yeah, and so starting out, we formed a committee and we utilized a few of the businesses that helped me the first year, so we could get feedback from them. There was a few other businesses and members of the community that were pretty gung-ho about this idea and jumped on. And so we just had a few different meetings, pounding out ideas, going through different scenarios, figuring out how to offer this program. From there, we sought out the interested businesses, yeah.
Yeah. So the 2 main sides of the equation of what we had to do were really recruit businesses and then recruit students and kind of match the 2 of them together.
So for advertising this, the big one this past year was word of mouth. We came up with a list of potential businesses that we thought would be interested, and we cold called them essentially, and that's how we found the majority of our businesses. We also took out an ad in the local newspaper, and we got a few calls on that, but there wasn't that many that came from that. I would say the cold calling and getting people on board was our main way of getting this out there. And then when we were doing the cold calling, it was a little bit of a challenge trying to explain the idea of that it was only going to be a month-long internship. A lot of businesses wanted them for the whole summer, and more so saw it as like a way to get an extra person doing labor for their operation. That it was more of an internship, more of a way for the student to see their operation and learn about it, and getting them to know that like there's a payback in the future from it, that the student may come back to them or may tell a friend about their business, and that's what they were more so getting out of it.
And I'd say that was like a hurdle early on, probably in the conversation. But once we got past that, I think a lot of businesses were interested because there is a labor shortage and everyone wants to, like a lot of local businesses have employees that are closer to retirement age. And so they're wanting to hire younger talent to bring them in for long term. So it was a pro and a con.
Yeah, and then as we started discussing with these businesses and in our committee meetings, some of the things that popped up was liability. So we had a gal from an employment agency join the committee meetings so that we could offer their services up, just because of the short-term employee at some of these businesses. We didn't know how that would go as far as liability for the business. Our alumni, we knew as the alumni, we didn't want the liability of the student to land back on us. And so we wanted to make sure that the student was actually an employee of the company. Another issue was trying to figure out the pay structure, and we tried to figure out a pay that would work flat across the board. And we quickly learned that that wasn't going to work. Some businesses wanted to pay more, and some of the bigger businesses had a set pay for like high school labor and stuff. And so we worked around that and decided that we kept it up to the business and the student to determine their pay for their month internship.
So we were basically we were not the employer by any means. We were more of a facilitator in the program, but then the businesses basically had all of the liability and they set their own pay structure and they paid each of the students. So one of the things that we did was we had businesses fill out this interest form, which I will show you here what it looks like. We just put this together both to gather interest, but then also to basically get all of the information, like contact information and everything we needed from the businesses. So contact information we gathered, but then we also wanted to know like how when they needed interns or when they needed the labor. So, there's one business that's more of an agronomy business. They needed a lot of help in May and June, but not so much in June and July. So we wanted to kind of work or cater to their needs too. So we were matching interns with them when they most needed them. They had the option, some larger companies we worked with had the option to have more than one student at a time. I think most people selected that they only wanted one student. per month, which worked out well for our program. We also just wanted a brief overview of what tasks the students would be doing so that we could use that to match the students up. And then again, as Jared mentioned, we worked with an employment company that helped basically facilitate some of the liability. So we asked if they were interested in some of that, in any of those employment services. And then also a lot of our students are busy throughout the summer and have other commitments, even if it's just for an hour a day or whatever. So we wanted to be sure that the businesses were willing to work with students through some of those commitments. And if not, we would just pair them up with students who didn't have many commitments. So that's kind of a brief overview, I guess, of the business form. And then we also just gathered some information, again, to use for advertisement purposes to the students as well about each business.
So for recruiting students, one thing I want to point out, Kevin, I think you maybe labeled this as an ag internship, and I didn't correct you on that, which is fine. But early on in our committee meetings, we determined that we did not want it just to be for FFA students, ag students, and nor just for ag businesses. For our members of the alumni, the farmers, and the business owners out here in rural Minnesota need every business there is, electricians, plumbers, accountants. And so we wanted to make sure that we kept this internship program open to all areas of business, not just ag. And so the FFA instructors and ag teachers were pretty good about getting in front of their students and talking about this internship program. And so that was probably our first advertisement. But then in January or February, we got in front of the whole junior and senior class and talked to them about this program and what we were trying to develop and try to drum up some interest, I guess, from it. And from there, then they filled out this interest form, which Katie will get to in a second. And then any of those kids that filled out that interest form were able to go on a day trip to tour the local businesses in the area. Most of them were businesses that had filled out interest forms of participating in this program. And we also threw on some other manufacturing businesses and stuff in Wilmer, and then ended the day at Ridgewater College so that they could talk about what they have to offer to the students there after high school is over. So do you want to go through the interest form that we sent to them?
So I just showed you the business interest form. We also had a second interest form that was specific for the students. So again, basically trying to just gather their interests, like what type of business they think, or type of career they're interested in, some contact info. Here we had a bunch of different careers that, not limiting or a bit limiting, but just a bunch of careers that they could choose from of what they thought their interests might be. We also wanted to ask them about their summer conflicts and which months they would be available. And then, as Jared mentioned, we offered that tour for them as well. So really the goal was trying to pair up the student interests with what the business opportunities were with our businesses.
So then actually go back one slide. So then for the interviews, from that interest form, we reached out to them and told them that we were going to do interviews with them to help try to place the students. And so I think this past year, I think there was 10 or 12 students that filled out interest forms. And then from that, once we put out interview times, we had 4 students come and interview. Myself, Katie, and Brett Peterson, another member of our alumni board, interviewed them. And we had just a bunch of generic questions just to kind of get to know the student and some of their interests so that we could try to place them with the right businesses that we thought would work out for both the business and the student. As we were placing them, we tried to get in their interest with 2 of them. And then the third one, we tried to throw out a kind of a curveball at them and be something that maybe they hadn't thought they're interested in, but that we thought would be maybe something that they could explore that might spark some more interest for them. So I don't know if you have anything to expand on that.
No, Connor can talk about that in a minute, I guess.
Yeah, and so then from there, we kind of just let them know what we picked and started talk to the businesses and students and tell them where they were going to be for each month. And that's where we went from there, I guess.
Yep. So as Jared mentioned, we set each student up with 3 different internships throughout the summer. So each internship was 4 weeks long. We had 4 students that we placed. 2 of them were, he mentioned we didn't want this to be solely for ag. So 2 of those students were more of our ag FFA students, and then 2 were not necessarily involved in the ag program. So it was kind of a good mix of students that we had.
Yeah. And we'll come back to the student testimony. I think Kevin's going to ask him some questions, so we'll just skip over that for now. So yeah, what went well? I don't think anybody had a very negative experience. I think it all went pretty well. One student was placed at the local banner, the Kirkhoven Banner, the newspaper, and we got a lot of exposure to the community from that. And she went around and actually interviewed some of the other students that were doing the internship. And so the community got to kind of see some of what was going on. And so I think as we go forward, we're going to try to hopefully find a student as much as we can to get into the banner so that we can keep having this exposure, because we did get a lot of feedback from the community saying this is a pretty great program and they liked reading about it. And yeah, the other businesses, some of the other things that I guess I had heard from them, employees just thoroughly enjoyed working with these students, having them ask lots of questions and getting to see them develop some skills and whatnot, working with them.
That was one thing that we did make pretty clear with the students too, before we even hired them, I guess, was this program is to help them, but also it reflects back on us. And so we were pretty careful to make sure that our students were going to show up for work on time. They were, going to work every day that they said they would and stuff like that, and make sure they were basically positively impacting the program as well.
And then as far as the businesses went, that was one thing that we made sure to convey to them, was that we expected them to show all or as many aspects of the business as they could possibly show the student. We didn't want them to just be a laborer. So we, give them a few days of pushing a broom or some manual labor, but also give them some experience with the books or stuff like that. And so I think that went pretty well. And, there's times where, there'd be a week where they maybe didn't have a employee that could really be showing them lots of stuff. So that week, maybe they were filling envelopes or something like that, but that's part of a job. And so that was kind of cool how that kind of worked out, I guess. So some things that we've got to improve on is going forward is we're going to hopefully probably hire a program manager, and it won't be a lot, but this past year, it kind of fell to my lap to help take care of lining up the students and the businesses and answering any questions. And it worked fine. I'm pretty busy on the farm and not in front of a computer all the time or able to answer my phone. And so some of the delayed answers and stuff could have been better and whatnot. And we realized that. So hopefully next year, if the program expands anymore, that definitely isn't manageable for myself. So more than likely, we'll just reach out to one of our members and stipend them for kind of taking care of that. And recruiting more businesses, I mean, that's just going to be always an ongoing thing. The one thing about the businesses is it was a lot easier to find businesses that were more of a blue collar job. And that probably is partly because a lot of our board members are farmers. And so we just reached out to people we did business with, having some of these students that really aren't going to go into ag and trying to find white collar businesses that were willing to take these students on was a little more challenging, partly because some of the stuff that they handle can't be handled by under 18-year-olds. And they also maybe don't quite see the need to have somebody at their business working, because they're not getting that labor aspect and they're writing a check to the student and maybe not seeing the payback on that. So we're trying to figure out how we can get more of those businesses, accounting offices,
Yes.
maybe even a lawyer's office, which that one of the students wanted, or that's kind of her career path, but we really couldn't get her placed in any lawyer's office. And then also these with that student being at the local newspaper, a lot of businesses found out after the fact and read those articles, and so they reached out to us asking why they weren't involved with this first year, and so we probably need to do a little bit better job advertising the program, and that'll just take care of itself as well going forward, I would say.
Yep.
So
yeah. With that, I don't know, Kevin, if you want to do questions right now or jump into Connor's stuff.
Yeah, maybe we'll interview Connor here quick, and then we'll have questions for all of you at the end in a little bit here. But yeah, that newspaper part was, I mean, you mentioned that, and that's how I learned of this program. So I had to do some networking to get Jared's contact information, see if he'd be willing to present today. And then we noticed the intern doing articles. So that has great publicity through the paper, like you said. So yeah, we'll turn things over here to Connor. Connor, you want to introduce yourself and maybe just, where you're at in school, or maybe some of your interests and a little bit of background?
Yeah, my name is Connor Wiltz. I'm a senior here at KMS High School. I live about 4 miles north of Kirkhope, Minnesota. We started raising a few cattle, help my uncle farm, and I'm in sports and football and stuff.
All right. Well, yeah, busy guy. So why did you choose to participate in the Ag Internship Program? I mean, it was presented to sound like the whole school, and you didn't have to do it, but what piqued your interest, and why did you want to try this out?
I tried this out because I really enjoy farming, and that's what I've been doing pretty much for a long time. I wanted to see what else was out there.
Okay.
So that's the main reason I did it.
Yeah. So maybe tell us a little bit about your personal experience with the program. You each had different stops every month or so. So who did you intern with? And just tell us a little bit about what your typical day was, or some of the things you learned.
The first intern programship I was at was at SGS with Tyler Carlson. He just ran on 12s east of DeGraff. They just built a new building there. It's called SGS. It's a field research where they get companies to have them grow their product. Then we do all the research and stuff and see how it's growing and spray all the stuff. The typical day looked like we'd get there. We'd either have to go spray, or we did a lot of stand counts, which is where you go count each plant. Learn how to do some soil testing and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Did you typically were there the whole day, or just like in the mornings, or all day?
8 to like 5.
Okay.
Monday through Friday.
Okay.
What was your
And what were the other two?
My second one was with Freely Electric in Kirkhope, Minnesota. I started at 7:30 and that went till 5. That was pretty good though. Right away I was just helping around the shop there, cleaning up some stuff and helping organize. And then the first job I went on was to a new shop that they're building, or they're putting some floor heat tubing in. So I got to experience how to do that for concrete. And then I was at the DeGraff elevator lot helping there.
All right. Good. Well, it sounds like a variety of things, and all kind of in your interest area, it sounds like too. I guess what were some of the bigger things that you learned through your experience this summer? Or was there an experience that maybe you weren't thinking about, that you thought, I never thought about, I never saw myself in this field, but now maybe I could, or anything like that? Or
the economy one was pretty good.
Okay.
It kind of confirmed your interest.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I've been thinking about doing it, but I wasn't for sure what it was totally like, and that helped a lot learning.
Right. Yeah, I have 2 high school kids of my own, and with their school, it's like sometimes what you learn is what you don't want to do. You go through an experience. Was there anything like that where you have your 3 stops where you're like, yeah, I don't think I want to do that?
Yeah, probably the electric one.
Okay.
That was a little out of my.
Yeah. Okay. And I guess finally, would you recommend this to freshmen, sophomores, juniors coming up through high school, you know, based on what you went through, would you say, hey, you should check this out? This is a pretty cool experience. Or
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would recommend it. Highly recommend it. It was a good experience. We meet a lot of different people.
Yeah.
And,
well, great. Well, thank
I
you.
don't want to throw a lot of words in your mouth, Connor, but Connor had been talking to Katie at one point, saying how you thought maybe the internships could have been a little longer.
yeah, instead of like 3, do like 2 maybe. Because by the time you
Yeah.
really got used
Right.
to, like, once you started going and got learning what to do, it was already up, and you'd go to the next place. So I think 2 would be a good, do 2 instead of 3.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, thanks. Yeah, appreciate your insight, and thanks for taking time out of your school day to join us today. I guess at this point now we open it up to any questions before these guys need to hop off. Just if anyone has any questions about the program, now would be a time to, you can raise your hand or put it in the chat or just come off mute and ask it. Fairly informal group.
So this is Ariane Ferris. I have maybe more of a comment than I have a question. But you, as far as just talking about your guys' need to potentially hire a program manager, expand business connections, and also help maybe businesses be able to get students that are 16, 17-year-old learners in the doors. I definitely have some ideas for you. And I would also say that this would be a fabulous program to write a LYFT career pathway grant for. You can ask for up to $25,000, and you can learn more about that at our website, liftpathways.org, LYFT pathways.org, and click on the grant funding button. And I'd be happy to visit with you more about all that as well if you have any questions. But this is awesome. Thank you guys very much for sharing this and getting this program up and going organically in your community. Very, very cool. So. And I wasn't sure if you guys could stick around, so now I just sort of prefaced my presentation some to the entire group, but I had to let you guys know that this would make for a fabulous project. I don't know, Dawn, she's on our advisory committee. Maybe she would disagree with me, but I think she would agree. So.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. That's good feedback. We'll have to connect. Maybe Kevin can get us.
Yeah, I'll get you connected. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, I think that was kind of what caught my attention too when I first saw it in the paper, was just how organic it was, and you're just addressing it on your own, and you know, it seemed like this could be a replicable thing in other communities around our region. So I just wanted to kind of bring attention to it, and you know, if other schools and communities can get an idea and, you know, plant that seed and maybe try this as well, go for it. I mean, this is a great way to get, you know, kids exposed to the local jobs that are there, and you know, both confirming their interests or also like, yeah, I don't want to be an electrician, like Connor said. So very valuable experience for the kids. And, you know, I think it'd be great for employers too, to kind of, maybe they see potential in a student that they could later hire in a couple of years. So
Yeah, especially those connections, they're so powerful.
Yeah.
And several studies have been done now that we're losing our graduates.
Right.
But those that we have retained have stuck around because of career and tech ed programs paired with work-based learning. So fantastic job. And I can't wait to see the next report that's going to come out, and that's going to show that you guys have retained more than anybody in the region. No, I don't know, but that's really cool. So
yeah,
good work.
Yeah. So any other questions quick before these guys may need to hop off? You guys can stick around as long as you want. I'm not trying to kick you off, but I know you maybe have a class coming in. If not, we'll turn things over to Ariane and Paul, and they can talk about the recent LYFT project and the CDL training going on in Black Oak Valley and Dawson-Boyd schools. Oh, you're on mute, Ariane.
It really wouldn't be a meeting without hearing that at least once, right? Okay, so now that we got that checked off our list. So as Kevin mentioned, I'm Ariane Ferris. I'm the Career and Tech Ed Project Coordinator with the Southwest West Central Service Co-op, and my primary role there is to lead LYFT for Launch Your Future Today career pathways. So just quickly, at LYFT, we believe that our potential is limitless when we know our strengths. So through partnerships and education, we're supporting relevant, engaging opportunities for secondary students to pursue the path that best fits them. So Launch Your Future Today is a rural career and technical education pathway initiative with the purpose of rebuilding career and tech ed in Southwest West Central Minnesota. We started out through a legislative appropriation back in 2017 and have been going strong ever since. The goal of LYFT Career Pathways is that every student in grades 5 through 12 across the region gains marketable skills through meaningful career and technical education courses and career-connected learning opportunities that lead to further education and careers that match our region's labor market needs. So at LYFT Career Pathway, behind all of us is a fabulous advisory committee, and you can check out those individuals as well on our website at lyftpathways.org and LYFTpathways.org. But really our basis is to really help change the narrative of that traditional career pathway approach, which we have seniors. I have a senior, and we're going to be working on what's next after high school. But sadly, I'm assuming when we get to her graduation ceremony or even leading up to that, I'm going to hear a very strong question often, or she is going to hear a question often. And typically that question is, what college are you going to? So that's usually the first thing we'll ask a senior. And it's really putting weight on the fact that college is what has to happen when in our labor market, that's very dynamic in Southwest West Central Minnesota. Only 30% of our jobs require a 4-year degree. And so really it's not necessarily college that is necessary. It could be OJTs, it could be credentials, certifications, it could be the 2-year, it could be the 4-year. But rather than really looking at what college you're going to go to, really focus on what that career pathway is and then what that education is that's needed and how there are options to obtain that. And one thing that we're finding too with the labor shortage is several of our employers are offering training in-house, on-the-job training. They have training programs. They have all these fabulous opportunities for students to enter and sort of move up this career pathway, almost kind of like going to college. So it's just another way of looking at things. And so we're really focused on helping to sort of change that narrative of what is the career path, then what's the education that's needed, and what does that future training opportunity look like. So here is a map of our service area, all of our school districts, and these are the schools since 2017 who have received, previously we called them LYFT Innovation Grants. We now call them Impact Grants. And so we provide these to our school districts. The primary caveat is that they would have a partnership with business and industry, and not just on paper, but truly being able to demonstrate the sort of employer engagement, whether it's co-teaching, tours, holding a class on site. We've had that happen several times, providing work-based learning opportunities. And so this just kind of gives you an idea of what schools have received LYFT Impact Grants. And yeah, always just looking to increase the number of grants that we can provide our schools, because we know that the career and tech ed, and even listening to the program prior to us, facilitating and organizing these work-based learning opportunities takes time and money. So just wanted to share a little bit with you on that LYFT Impact Grants. So as I mentioned, they're now open too. There's a rolling deadline. The maximum amount that school districts can apply for is $25,000, which has been an increase. Paul's probably shaking. No, yeah, we did just increase that. Paul's probably shaking his head going, what? But anyways, we have increased that. And there's a ton of information out on our website. Again, lyftpathways.org, and the tab there is grant funding. So here's just sort of some snapshots of that entire page once you get onto the grant funding page. But it will highlight the funding guidelines, timeline, has the project forms there, so you can kind of get in a sense of what the application looks like, the budget summary, and even the final report, more information on sort of how we define CTE and different definitions of vocab words in there as well. But certainly always available to meet with anybody that has any questions regarding considering submitting an application. This year it is a little different. We are asking for letters of intent first, and those are brought to our advisory committee check-in meetings that are held monthly on the third Thursday of every month at 3 o'clock. And so any letters of intent that have been received now leading up to October 15th, we will then bring those forward to our committee to review, and then following that, we respond to our folks that have submitted a letter of intent to let them know that they can proceed with submitting an application. And we currently have approved 3, so looking forward to seeing those soon. So with that, yes, Lacaparo Valley and Dawson-Boyd schools just recently had a LYFT Impact funded project around CDL training. And so just wanted to share that project with all of you here this afternoon. And so we have Paul Lowry, who is our high school counselor at Lacaparo Valley, here to talk to us a little bit about this project that they got going at Lacaparo Valley and Dawson-Boyd High School. So Paul, thank you for taking the time to talk about the CDL training program, Lacaparo Valley and Dawson-Boyd High Schools. I know we're all eager to hear more about how this initiative came to be and its potential impact. So to start off, just very generically, I guess, how did the CDL training program for high school students come to be?
Sure. So basically the program, I would say you could look at it and say it was pretty simple, straightforward, but really it's kind of been a long time coming. You know, one thing that we've been doing here at Lacaparo Valley is trying to bridge that gap between high school and that next step. You know, historically, I feel like we were pretty strong with that for students that are looking at a 4-year college experience. When I moved into the counseling position, we had over 95% of our graduates attending a 4-year college, at least initially. And you know, that always wasn't the best fit, you know, and so one of the things that I was looking to do was, how do we create opportunities? How do we bridge this gap into more of our CTE or non-4-year college individuals? And you know, with the formation of LYFT, that was something that we took advantage of. We started a CNA class that we still have, along with some other programs that have kind of gone to the wayside. Another big step that we took here 3 years ago was an internship program as well. Listen to KMS talk, kind of pretty similar to what they're doing, except ours is actually during the school day. We run it in the second semester, kind of targeting our seniors. Last year, we opened it up to the juniors as well. But with that, as part of that process, one of the things we did was we reached out to our communities to try and see, okay, what is it that you guys feel is a need in terms of skills and training? And that's been an ongoing conversation for a number of years. You know, whether that's being a part of some economic development meetings, or meeting with individual employers, you know, has been a process. And our attempt at a CDL actually started probably around, well, it was pre-COVID anyway. I don't remember if it was exactly 2018 or 2019. And we were looking at it through LYFT, but at that time we were having a hard time finding some business partnerships. And so that brings us to this past year, where actually it was kind of initiated with some local businesses. You know, they reached out in part of our conversations, and one of the things that came up is, what about a CDL program? You know, is there a possibility we could get training? And you know, my response was absolutely. You know, and you know, so it really started as kind of a response to a perceived demand within the community. You know, once that initial conversation occurred, we worked with the Madison EDA, Jim Connor, helped make some connections at local businesses, and you know, we rallied support. Because one of the things that we wanted to do was not just have a class and then these students walk away, but we wanted students to be able to go through this training with a license at the end of it, ready to you know, step into a semi or a bus, or whatever type of commercial vehicle, and put their training to use. So one of the things that we felt was going to be important in this program was not just the classroom permit training, but actually behind the wheel experience. And you know, if you look at the numbers, that requires a pretty significant financial commitment. I don't have the exact dollar figure, but I think it's somewhere around $200 some an hour that Minnesota West charges, with the typical student requiring about 40 hours of training to be ready to take the exam.
It gets to be about $8,000 real quick.
Yeah. You know,
Per
and
student.
so, yeah, so that wasn't obviously something that, you know, we at Lac Pearl Valley have the funding to write a check for. But we also wanted to have a program that, you know, was going to provide access to all students, you know, and not have that financial barrier. So a lot of our employers have stepped to the plate and have made a commitment, either financially, or have offered up their time and equipment to help facilitate some of that behind the wheel training. So really, you know, it's this partnership with our local industry that has allowed this to happen. And yeah, we made connections with Minnesota West. We reached out to the Swift County Fair Board about looking at using that site as a training ground for students to do, you know, the behind the wheel work on. And then I guess the final step was when we kind of had pieces in place that this could be a reality. We went to the students and you know, promoted the class, and we have about 10 students here at Lac Pearl Valley, and I think there's about 5 at Dawson-Boyd that have signed up. So we are looking at running it this spring. We kind of shifted our schedule around here 2 years ago, where we're running a modified block. So our 6th and 7th hour are one class. So you have a 98-minute period, and the CDL class is going to run during that time. So the students will be in the class every day, and it'll be kind of on a hybrid type of vision between, you know, some days they'll have an in-person instructor from Minnesota West. Other days they'll be working on some online type curriculum.
So my next question was going to be, have you seen interest from students for CDL training? But I think you answered my question. 15 students.
Sure.
That's great. Was it hard to get them? Do you feel like you had to talk them into it, or were they signing up and you had to hold them back?
Yeah, there was quite a bit of interest. You know, and we have a segment of our population that you know, this is right up their alley, whether they're wanting to go into agriculture, you know, they're thinking about being an auto mechanic or things along those lines. So that it's definitely an interest with our student body. You know, my hope is that it's something that will be able to be maintained. And honestly, I think it will, especially when students can see that connection to you know, employable skills. You know, and another thing that I should kind of address, which has kind of been our goal, for those that are familiar with Lac Pearl Valley, you know, we have a large Micronesian population, and you know, one of the things that we've been trying to work on is being a benefit to that population as well. When we first students started coming through our system, having a student, especially a male student, that would continue to be in school and finish a degree was a real challenge. I feel like we're pretty well over that hurdle, but now the challenge that we're trying to face and trying to address is, okay, how do we help them make that connection from that transition from high school to life after high school, whatever that looks like, whether that's a college degree, whether that's the workforce or some sort of skills training. How do we create that connection? And one of the avenues that I've been trying to promote is to create that bridge between high school and that post high school life, if you will. So any type of training or connections that we can make where they're developing some sort of certification or employable skills, I see as a huge benefit and as a way to open up doors and opportunities for that population as well as all of our students. And so that's something as well where the CDL program, really ties into meeting that type of goal as well, is to bridge that gap between high school and employment or the development of job skills.
Yeah, that's really awesome. I was just going to ask, so what are, like, as far as, is this a class you said it's going to start in the spring, or has it already started?
Yeah, it'll start in our spring semester. So on January 22nd, I believe is our first day of that semester. Excuse me, the 21st is the first day of our spring semester. So that's when we'll start. And the first half of the class essentially will be permit prep work. So they'll be running through the course work and skills, preparing those students to go in and take their driver's permit or CDL permit. And then at that point, it'll be more on an individualized basis. The students will have that time, but they will then schedule behind the wheel time during that class time. We'll have a rotation. Sounds like we'll probably have 2 trucks from Minnesota West, and then it's looking like the possibility of a 3rd vehicle from one of our local employers, where students will be getting that behind the wheel experience, preparing them to take their license exam.
Yeah, that's awesome. And yeah, so the connections that they're making with those employers, even just through some of the materials and times and resources that they're providing. But I know oftentimes even that's been sort of a barrier for other schools, is being able to provide the students the opportunity for the behind the wheel, because several of those students are not kind of farm oriented anymore, like back in the day when several students were. And so that familiarity with driving a truck is not as apparent as it once was. So that's really great. And I think too, it really helps the school's sustainability to make these sort of things happen. As you mentioned, that cost is tough for the school, it's tough for the student. And so really being able to come together with that business community to leverage those resources, I think will be powerful. And again, I think it will really help too with just some of that retention, because those connections, I think, really help our students sort of identify, like, they don't know what they don't know. So the more opportunities like this that we can provide to them and the connections they can make, we're doing a good job of creating those pathways. So great work.
Yeah, and I guess just one,
yeah.
Well, I was just going to say one other thing I would say, from the employer standpoint, and again, I think this coming out of continual conversations, and whether maybe it's a positive that has come out of the pandemic or not, looking at the labor shortage that we have. But I think, from an employer standpoint, I'm not an employer, so I could be speaking out of turn here. But what I perceive is that they're starting to realize that there's a benefit to them more so than just a direct financial benefit. but having access to these students, being able to fill, future roles is a benefit, and a few $1,000s, whether it's a $5,000 commitment in the scheme of things, is probably a small investment to have someone that's going to be able to fill a need in your workforce.
Mhm.
We did have a question in the chat here about, with some of these local businesses contributing financially or with their trucks or whatever. Are they requiring students to enter any type of contracting to stay employed with them after the funding has been, or after the training's been completed?
Right. So that is one of the things that was in discussion. Whether it's would be like a student sponsorship type of thing, like a Build Dakota type of situation for anyone familiar with that scholarship program, where the student has their training paid for in return for employment at that facility. But that is not what we have set up. These employers have entered into this with really no direct commitment to hiring an individual, other than that there'll be another trained driver. Ideally, that with success, you'll have 10 more licensed CDL drivers that will be part of the labor pool.
Yeah, I guess kudos to them for
Yeah.
thinking that way, because that's
Yeah.
not always the case, I'm guessing.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was going to say, Paul, thank you for sharing all of this. I think it sounds like a exciting opportunity for the students, and I know we all look forward to seeing how it progresses, and we'll have to follow up with you in the spring and see sort of the success of that. But thank you very much. And I think, Kevin, if we want to turn it over for any questions.
Yeah, do we have any questions from the audience for Paul or Ariane? I was impressed by the number of students that you have, interested in this. That's great. I mean,
Yeah.
And I guess one of the things that we can compare this to kind of go back to your initial question about commitment for employment. We started a CNA class. Looking at the graphic, it maybe we were in the second round, but I feel like we've been running it for quite some time. So I thought we had it going a little earlier than that. But we started the CNA class through a LYFT program, and so that was funded for about 2 years. And then essentially, due to budgetary constraints, we weren't going to run it. Well, the local hospitals, were on the phone and like, well, why aren't we training CNAs anymore? And they came to that realization, of that mutual benefit. Well, our CNA graduates weren't necessarily walking into the program with the signed contract, but they were certainly making up part of the labor force that those hospitals were employing. And so that started a conversation, and now we've been running this CNA class for a number of years, entirely funded by the 3 community hospitals. And again, there's not a contract for employment, but a large number of those students do end up working in one of those facilities. And they come in, they have access, they have interaction with those students. So I really see it as mutually beneficial arrangement.
Yeah, I agree. I was just going to add really quick to kind of on this note, just wanted to share that our region did receive, so LYFT is partnering with the Southwest Minnesota Private Industry Council and Central Minnesota Jobs and Training on a STEM robotics grant, and that has dollars in it for internships, excuse me. And so the goal of that program is especially to sort of target our robotics courses and our robotics teams. And so I just wanted to share that too, if there's any businesses on here today or anybody who is aware of robotic students and would be interested in being able to provide or learn more about providing students those opportunities. around sort of the STEM, I would definitely encourage you to reach out to Maria Peters at PIC or Diana Ristamaki at CMJTS, and I can send that information out here as well, Kevin. But it just got me thinking too, kind of another industry, but definitely an opportunity there for those opportunities as well. And I don't know how many of you have been in a robotics space before, but I am just starting to, and it is amazing. These students are amazing. It would be, for someone who's worked with employers as long as I have, like literally it would be like heaven walking in there, because these kids are, I mean, they just are smart and intelligent, and they know how to talk to people, and it would just, yeah, So anyways, I can't really speak more about how great some of these robotics teams and the students are learning. And so we're really hopeful to get them connected to our local businesses and help them see what other opportunities exist locally around STEM opportunities. So, thank you.
Thanks. Any other final questions quick before we sign off here? Otherwise, I'll plan to post this recording of the video on our website, and I'll send out a follow-up email to everyone that was on the call today with contact information if you do have any questions for our presenters today, or you can shoot me an email too, and I'll get you in touch with them. Again, appreciate our presenters today taking time out of their busy schedules to share what they're working on. It's great to have two excellent local examples of connecting our youth to career opportunities in the region. And if there are no other questions, just again, thanks for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your fall and all this nice weather we're having. So thanks. See you guys.
Thanks. Yeah.